Welcome, Jasmine, to Dating Intentionally. I am so excited you're here. One of my followers actually told me to follow you when I was like looking for just like diverse people to follow, honestly. So thank you for being here.
Oh, thanks for having me. I'm so excited for this topic.
Yeah, we are going to be getting into a lot of dating tips for plus size women here. But I want to start with you though. Like, what made you want to start your page, your site, Jas Explains?
So I first started Jas Explains in 2019, and I think the reason why I wanted to start it is because so first of all, I live in Malaysia. So I'm currently in Kuala Lumpur, which is the capital of Malaysia, and Malaysia being a country that we don't talk a lot about, sex and pleasure. I think it's the same with any other country, but especially in a country like Malaysia and Asia, it's just really taboo, and I wanted to have a safe space where I talk about things that are really important to me, and so I couldn't find any other people that talks about sex education or just sexual wellness and pleasure. And I just decided to start Just Explains as a way for me to talk about these things openly and honestly. And, I go by this mantra of be someone you needed when you were growing up. And when I was growing up, I didn't have anybody to talk about these things. And so I just really wanted to do that on my page. And then it just became bigger than what it is. It just started as an Instagram page, and then it became sort of people inviting me to events. And then I started creating my own events. And yeah, it's just building a community out of it. So it's really cool.
That is so amazing. What you've built is incredible. I love all the topics that you talk about on your page. You talk about so many different things. And you recently had an event this past June, right? Like you had like kind of this like in person. What was that all about?
Yeah, so I do this event. I organize this event called Saucy Mingle. Essentially, what it is, I call it a networking event with a twist. So people who go to Saucy Mingle, it's not a dating event. Although if you find someone that you really like and you want to connect, but essentially Saucy Mingle is a place where people go there to network, to get to know new people, new friends, and then at the same time, it's we talk about things that are essentially stigmatized. Like we talk about whatever the topic that I just talked about, like sex and sexuality and all that stuff. And every Saucy Mingle, and it's bi-monthly, so it's every 2 months, we have a specific topic. And it's just really cool to have a safe space for people to talk about all these things, but also to normalize the conversation because not a lot of people have safe spaces. Sometimes even they don't even have friends to talk about certain things like kings and fetishes or things that they just think about. And I always say this in all my events that you don't have to share because a lot of times we feel like we're pressured to share things, but also at the same time, there's so much power in just listening and just
Mm,
normalizing the conversation with people.
amazing. And so this is like all ages, like what kinds of people, like in terms of ages and gender breakdown, like show up to these events? So interesting.
Yeah. So in terms of ages, predominantly we have people, majority is mid, like probably late 20s to like late 30s. But generally it's for people of all gender, of all sexual experiences. And that's something
Mhm.
that I really touch on. Like, because I run a platform that is a sex positive platform. And I want to make sure that even if you've never had sex, the conversation of sex positivity or the idea of sex positivity, it goes way beyond to just people who have had sex. Even if you never had one, the experience, it's okay. You can be sex positive.
That's incredible. Thank you for putting this out into the world. Just that's really amazing. And I hope that people listening, maybe it'll inspire them to find a similar space near them or start one, right? Anyone can start something like this. You don't have to like be an expert in anything necessarily. You can just
No,
create
not
the
at all.
space. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I would love to switch gears a little bit and talk a little bit about your dating journey. So like when did you start dating? Like what age?
Probably started dating. I think my first kind of boyfriend was when I was 14, but that was only like for a month. And the official dating period as an adult is probably when I was like 21 or 22, kind of, is
Mhm.
when I like got my first adult boyfriend.
Got it. Are you in a relationship now?
No, so I'm single.
Okay, single,
And
ready to
happily
mingle?
single. Yeah, yeah.
Happily
Like I'm
single,
like
okay.
having fun and stuff like that. Yeah.
Are you on the apps?
I am. I am kind of on some of the apps, but like I have this tendency to go on the apps and then completely delete the whole profile and account, and then like go on it again when I get bored
That's
and
very
leave when I get bored.
relatable. What apps are big in Malaysia and where you are?
So the apps that are big is Bumble and Tinder. Field is kind of slowly creeping in as well. We don't have Hinge in Malaysia, which kind of sucks because I was kind of curious to explore Hinge, but like the closest country with Hinge is Singapore. So you
Oh,
kind of still,
interesting.
yeah, so you kind of still can go get Hinge, but like you need to have like a Singaporean, I think, app store or something like that. So like it's a whole
Wow.
thing.
Field is
Um,
having a moment also right now, I feel like in the US.
it's growing. I remember like I was on field like a few years ago and I was like, wow, it's really empty here in Malaysia. And then now it's just booming. And I'm like, whoa, like what is happening? But interestingly, field, not a lot of people know. I think this would be a question maybe, like what is field?
Yeah, I was
Uh
about to ask you, can you explain
yeah,
what Field is?
yeah. So Field is a kind of like a dating app for people who kind of wanted to explore something beyond the traditional monogamy or two people sort of thing. So like if you're searching, if you're a couple searching for a threesome, if you're like a single person searching for a couple of or swinging and all that stuff, so Field is the place to go, which a lot of people interestingly don't really know about that. In Malaysia sometimes, so like I have people who are like, oh, I don't understand why these couples are searching for me. And I'm like, well, you're on this app. That's especially for that.
Yeah. Well, it's I think it started like that, and then what I love about Field also is that everyone is very kink forward. It's like people just have
Mhm.
all of their kinks listed on their profile. You know exactly what you're getting into sexually, and I think that's really it's an interesting approach to finding a match, I guess, sexually or romantically or both. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Agreed.
you started dating from a young age, and I'm really curious to hear about challenges you face being plus size through your journey. Like, tell us a little bit about that if you're open to it.
Yeah. I mean, challenges. I think there's like a few challenges. I mean, my biggest challenge is probably it has something to do with my self esteem. It's kind of like sometimes I'm sort of like, do you really like me for me? Or like I question myself, like, why do you choose me as opposed to someone who is quote unquote normal size? You know, is it something about me? Even though and sometimes they will call me hot, like, oh Jasmine, you're like hot. That I find you attractive, I find you hot. And then I think for the longest time, especially like as when I was younger, the word hot is equivalent to like probably a supermodel or probably someone who's slimmer than me and so when someone calls me hot today, even though in theory like we have embraced the whole sort of curvy plus size bodies of different types of bodies as and I totally know that and acknowledge that and I embrace that. But still, sometimes when people call me hot, like I feel like my insecurity kind of are you sure like I'm hot?
Mm,
Like I don't know what that means, like physically, like and all that stuff. So that's one thing. It was just me kind of second guessing, like, oh, why are you with me? But then I'm just like, no, it's because of so many things that is beyond just what I think, like superficially, is why
yeah.
they're attracted to me.
That came up a lot, like that exact feeling that you were describing of like someone expressing like I'm into you, you're so hot, something like that. But then in the back of your mind, you're like, but I'm not hot the way society defines hot. And it's like, can you
Mm,
really believe that? And so, but I think hotness is just so much bigger than this cookie cutter body that we see on social media. Like, with all the filters and the photoshopping and just everything. Like what do you think? Like how do you view hotness, with through your journey?
So I think for the longest time, even sometimes today, I see the word hot or being hot or hotness as a physical thing. But then I think also like I've learned to sort of as you grow older, like you kind of meet different people, and I meet different women and of different sort of personalities and different sort of background, and that sort of expanded my whole knowledge of what hot means. And so I'll be seeing someone and they might have like a really cool outfit and I'm like, fuck, that's hot, and or something that they do. So, and also like a big thing that kind of changed the way I perceive the term hot is knowing that hot doesn't necessarily equal to having a really quote unquote what society deem as a hot body.
Mhm.
but also it means being confident. Like I don't know if I'm
Yes.
making sense. So like
No, it does. I
now
think
I,
being hot is an energy. It's not
yeah.
necessarily a look. I think also, yeah, like hot can look a lot of different ways, but I believe it's an energy. It's a confidence. But it's
Yeah.
easier to be have that confidence when your body looks like what society thinks is hot. That's the
Correct.
truth. Yeah.
Correct. But then also like I mean that's the thing. So nowadays I try not to think about that, about like the body and stuff like that. That, you know, I attribute so much of hotness as being confident. And that's what I aspire to be. So when nowadays when people say like, oh my gosh, you're like hot or like whatever like that, and I'm like, that's probably like the energy that I'm bringing, like the confidence I'm bringing,
Mhm.
and that sort of is attractive to people. And I'm like, I'm all for that.
So when you feel those insecurities pop up or when you hear that voice, that track in your head of like, they think I'm hot, like what do you say to yourself? Like how do you address that now?
I kind of have to. This is where the like the inner child work thing comes in, where I have to tell, because whenever someone says like you're hot or whatever, the first thing that the first Jasmine to appear is actually teenage Jasmine, saying like, "Are you sure? Like, are we hot? Are you really?" So I have to like, as adult Jasmine in my mind, have to tell teenage Jasmine like, you earned this, right? Like, they mean this. They don't necessarily mean what you think society means, and blah 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 blah. So I had to kind of come in and go like, this is what they mean, and you are what you are. And you know, if anything, they should be these people who are in your presence right now and who's complimenting you, they, if anything, they should be thankful that you're here in front of them. And
Hell yes.
you know, and yeah, that's the kind of things that I look at right now.
I love that. That's so helpful. Is that something that you picked up in therapy, like this inner child, teenage Jasmine stuff?
It's something that I pick up along the ways of like doing retreats. So like I've been a part of different sort of like self-improvement retreats or self-healing
Mhm.
retreats, and the inner child, like the feminine retreats, and all these different types of like coaches and stuff that I've been involved with,
Nice.
whether it be as a participant or whether it be as an organizer, and helping out all these different coaches. And that empowered me to then look beyond myself and understanding and acknowledging that different parts of Jasmine show up. And you know, it's
Yes.
okay. And adult Jasmine to kind of come in and go like taking care of all the different parts of Jasmine.
Oh my god. I love that you're talking about this. This is amazing. I think about this all the time. I'm also
Mm.
like having a constant inner dialogue with like little Talia, teenage Talia. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So, what would you say to listeners who are maybe feeling discouraged or hesitant about dating due to insecurities around their body size?
I would say to focus on other attributes that you have within
Mm,
yourself, because that's something that I've battled for the longest time, of just like, oh, how I look and stuff. And this is what I realized. So here's the fun fact: I work in the entertainment industry here in Malaysia, and I am constantly surrounded by models. I'm constantly surrounded by celebrities and influencers and all these different things, different people.
what do you do? What's your role?
So I used to work for a talent agency. So I was like a manager for like a celebrity influencer sort of manager. And
That
now
was
I
my dream job. That was my dream job coming out of
was
college. I'm
it?
not kidding. Yes,
Oh
that
wow.
I worked as an assistant at one of the bigger agencies in
Oh.
New York. But yeah, go on. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Just like I relate.
Oh, that's really cool. Yeah, yeah. So that was what I've been working. That was my job for like, I still am in industry. So that was my job for like 5, 6 years. And you know, whenever celebrities were to say, yeah, yeah, talk to my manager, like I am the manager that goes in and go like and start talking to people. And you know, we would go to a lot of events. And what I realized, and I remember this one time I was in the toilet, and there were like this bunch of like models that came in, and I was just listening to them talk, saying how, you know, oh, I'm so insecure. We're like, I have to go up there, I have to say something because I have to give a speech or a presentation or something. So, like, I have to give the speech or presentation. I'm not good at public speaking. I'm not good at certain things, blah, blah, blah. And then I'm there thinking to myself, I'm like, I'm good at public speaking. I'm good at like this thing. So, like, I might not look like a model, like gorgeous, like tall and slim and slender and everything like that. But, like, I have these other attributes that, or these other skills and talents that they wish they had. And, you know, I'm pretty sure if they see me and then they see me on stage and they'll be like, oh, I wish I had what she has. So there's always this whole like, you know, the grass is always greener. I wish what they have, and, you know, and all this stuff. And so that then made me sort of look at myself beyond just the way I look or the shape of my body or my weight. I look at like the fact that I can carry myself well, or the fact that I speak okay and I talk to people, and all my other talents and attributes. I'm really proud of myself. And so that allowed me to be comfortable and be confident in myself and to appreciate myself beyond just how I look like, because I am more than my
Mhm.
body, you know,
Yes.
and that truly helped me to get out. And sometimes like it's I say this, but sometimes like you get into a funk and you just hate the way you look that particular day. But then there are days where I'm just like, yo, like I have so many other things. And if people don't appreciate that and people just look at me and my body and judge me based on that and say to themselves she's unattractive, like whatever, then that's their issue, because
Right.
yo, like I have
Yeah.
friends who love me and people who care about me. So
Yes, I love this. I mean, you touched on so many important things, like focusing on everything you do have as a person, which is separate and like kind of irrelevant to your body. Just and also, yeah, like having people in your life who love you, appreciate you, value you, and not focusing so much on the people who, for whatever reason, decide they want to take one look at you and decide that you're not worthy or valuable. It's like, that's not, don't pay attention to those people. It's like, we can't, those people are always going to exist no matter what you look like, no matter what you're doing. But there's no point in paying attention to them. It doesn't do anything for us.
yeah, and I think you touch on a very important thing about who you surround yourself with, because a
Mm.
lot of the times you always talk about confidence from within and how you talk to yourself about certain things, but what's also important is who you surround yourself with, because you can have positive self-talk, but then if you surround yourself with people who will just bring you down all the time and who will say all these really horrible things, you're not going to be able to thrive.
Hmm.
So, and also, I think what's also really important is that all of these things, they are practices. It's not something that you tell yourself, I'm going to be okay, and that's it. It's something that you actively have to choose to remind yourself and to practice and make it into a lifestyle. Because we can always say things, but it's not going to happen if you're not going to practice.
Oh my God, so true. I know we could talk about it all day, but are you doing it? So, what would you say to the dater who really wants to download the apps or try asking someone out, but they're like, but I'm in this bigger body. What if they reject me? What if all this stuff happens? What if they laugh at me? What if they make fun of me? Like, there's all this hesitancy. Where does that dater start with dating?
So I think just understanding that there's so many different ways of meeting people, that don't be limited to just dating apps. Because I think like a lot of times, and it's true with some of my followers or like friends as well, they would go on dating apps and they will have all this hope, and then they didn't match with anybody, and then they start like beating themselves up because they're just like, oh, it's probably the way I look and everything. People have to remember, and this is something I remind myself as well, that dating apps are so superficial. They just go by like pictures and how you look, and not all of us are really good at like curating our profiles and stuff. So I would still encourage people to go on dating apps, but then also at the same time put yourself out there, in a sense where going to events or having friends to introduce you to their friends, kind of.
Yes.
That's Yeah, that's something that I'm actively doing as well. Like I'm literally telling all my friends like, "Hey, can you introduce me to your friends, because you know me so well, and I trust that you know people who I think will match my vibe." Or I would go to events with friends or like alone, or kind of like really putting myself out there. And yeah, and knowing that, reminding yourself of your worth, that it's beyond just like how you look.
Yes. Okay. I love this. I mean, yeah, I think that when you focus all your dating energy on the apps, it is going to ultimately be a negative experience. You need to, this is for all daters, any size, any gender, everything. Like, we need
Yeah.
to expand from the dating apps because it's the, I've realized, and I've talked about this before on the podcast, that like dating apps are really unique in that, like, they're the only thing we do, one of the few things we do where, like, if it doesn't work, like if you don't meet anyone, you literally get nothing out of this experience. Whereas if you go to events and you are hanging out with your friends, even if you don't get a date, you're still having that social interaction. Like you don't need to get something out of that. And there's less pressure. But then like you're spending hours on the apps and it's like, I'm not getting any dates. I'm not getting any matches. Yeah, you're going to feel bad about it. Like, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And dating apps are there. infamous with people ghosting you or people just
Mhm.
not interacting or talking and putting effort and stuff like that. And that's definitely going to make you more sad and like and just really frustrated and and all of that stuff. Think dating app as just one of the many ways of meeting
Mhm.
people. It shouldn't be
Yep.
the only way, right?
Yes.
So you dating app is one of it, and then you go to events or like you have people introducing you to people, and or you go to like a book club or a running club or like all those different things, all the social events. And like what you said, you don't have any specific expectation. You're just going out there to have fun and meet people, and also it allows you to train yourself to talk to strangers, to make conversations. And these are skills that are essentially pretty important if you are going on dates with actual people
Yes.
and actual dates.
Yes. Absolutely. So, what is your advice for like when you are on the apps or even in dating in person and you keep getting rejected or you keep getting people who are just not interested in you romantically? They're like, "Oh, let's just be friends." But, it's hard to not make that mean. Like, they're saying that because I am plus size, or they're saying that because they don't like my body. But what are the other thoughts? What's the reframe? Because I feel like it's really easy to take a rejection and twist it into they're not choosing me because of insert thing I'm insecure about here. You know what I mean?
So the way I see this, and this is such a good question, and I battled about this myself. So the way I see it is, I have this thought like what they think about me is none of my business. So if they don't find me attractive or they don't find me interesting or whatever that may be, that is their perception of me, but it is not my reality of me.
Mm.
If that makes
Yes,
sense.
it's like that perception is theirs. I have my own perception of myself, and we don't need to agree.
Yeah,
Like,
I've
yeah.
come to a point right now as someone in my mid 30s, is that if I can match with someone and not find them attractive, other people can do the same with me, and that's completely fine.
Yes.
And that's completely fine. It has nothing to do with me, because when I don't find the other person attractive, I'm just like, I don't want to waste any of our time, and I'm just going to move
Yes.
forward, and I'm going to do my thing. And if the other person is not interested in me, I hope that you tell me or you show an indication. Or even if you ghost me, ghosting is such a shitty thing, but like it tells me so much about, this is a reflection of the other person. It has nothing to do with me. How you choose to
Mhm.
go, so how you go about sort of
Right,
rejecting
right.
me.
It's like, "Oh, you think this is appropriate. Well, this isn't meeting my standard, so good." Like,
Yeah.
I'm out.
Yeah, yeah, but
Yeah,
my main thing is just like, if I can do that to other people can do that to me, and no hard
yeah.
feelings for anybody, because
Mhm.
we don't want to waste anybody's time. It has nothing to do with me. It's all, it's what you want, and I don't want to waste my time or get hurt or along the way. So
Yeah. I
yeah.
think your approach and what you're saying is an incredible, like, goal for a lot of people. Like, we all wanna get there to that mindset, but it's really hard when you are struggling with feeling self-worth and value on your own, even if you're not dating, and then all of a sudden, you're using people's reaction to you as, like, a way to inform how valuable you think you are, and it's, like, really hard to get out of that mindset. So it's like if let's just say you're taking a dating break, right? We're not
Mhm.
dating anymore. We're taking a break. What are some ways to boost our self-esteem on our own?
So what we were talking earlier about, the people that
Mhm.
we surround ourselves with, doing things
Yeah.
that make us happy, that makes us feel confident within ourselves, doing things that are fulfilling, being, again, like being with people that makes us feel our best self, makes us feel grounded and centered, back to our own skin again. I think
Mhm.
that is what's important to, did you say, make us feel confident?
Yeah. No, 100%. Yeah. I think it's like it sounds so simple, but I think a lot of us, like, don't do it. It's like, yeah, of course, I'll just have, rely on my friends and, like, do my hobbies. What if you also part of that equation is being present for those activities, being present and being like, "Wow, like, I feel really good when I'm watching The Bachelor with my friends," which is what I'm doing tonight. Like, I feel like you have to actually be present in these moments so you, like, fill your cup with that feeling of value and worth and all those things you want to feel that you're trying to get from other people, right?
Yeah. So I give you an example. Currently, right now, I'm into doing puzzles. I
Ooh, like
it's
actual like puzzles on a big table, like you're like
so
300
like
piece.
I started with like small puzzles at the moment. I don't know if I can show you, but
Yeah, yeah, show me, show me. We have
so
YouTube.
it's
If you're on
it's
YouTube, you can see the
basically
puzzles.
so this is sort of like a small puzzle that's also like a like pictures of different Disney characters. For this
Oh my
one,
gosh, I
it's
see
Toy
Mr. Potato
Story.
Head,
Yeah.
Mrs. Potato Head.
And
Oh
this
my
is
god.
yeah, and it's like palm size. For those who are listening, it's palm size. It's really small, and I think there's I don't know how many pieces or something. It's
The pieces look
196.
small.
They're like tiny, but
Yeah.
like I got this because I was just like, oh, I need to kind of find something to bring me back to my center again to make me feel grounded because I've been super busy with like work and kind of like dating. It's like I don't even want to think about dating at this point. I just want to be back to my body and myself. So like I bought these puzzle things and I was just doing it while watching TV and I was like so happy doing it. And it's such a small thing and I never knew that I could be into puzzles. I don't think I am capable of doing really big ass puzzles at the moment just because I don't want to stress myself out. But tiny puzzles just so that I can go back. And, you know, whether it be like trying new things to kind of figure who you are and what you like, or doing things that you're already good at or you know that's going to bring you back to your center, do those things
Mhm.
to kind of find yourself again, especially if you're taking
Right.
a break from dating.
Yeah, such a good example, and hearing you speak just made me think, like, we can't expect happiness and these or the feeling grounded and centered to just happen to us. We have to actually create those moments for ourselves. You actually have to pull out the puzzle and do it. You can't just like look at it on the shelf and be like, and wonder why you're not feeling grounded and centered. You have to like it's
Yeah.
like you're carving out time for it. And it's like we really have to break it down into these little steps. So
Yeah,
yeah,
or
thank
like
you.
going for a walk.
Yeah, exactly. It could be so many things. So I want to
Yeah.
switch gears a little bit because this was coming up a lot in my questions. We have to address this whole thing about plus size women being fetishized on dating apps and in dating in general. Like, have you experienced this yourself?
Oh my gosh. Okay, so like that's a story.
I'm ready.
So here's the thing, right? Like I don't know if this is an experience of a lot of the plus size women out there, but like I have this thing. I'm not against men who are skinnier than me, who are slimmer than me, or partners essentially who are slimmer than me. But then I have this fear that whenever I match with someone slimmer than me, I'm always like, are you just into me because you're into me or because you have a fetish for like plus size women? So I tend to stay away from like slimmer men and I tend to go for like men who are about my size or a bit bigger than me just because I'm just like, oh, maybe they're not fetishizing
Mhm.
me. So like that's been a fear. So there was this one time, I think a few years ago, I matched with this guy who was kind of like the same size as me and I did not know that he actually had a fetish. And this is not to sort of yuck anyone's yum if you're into
Yeah.
that, right? At all. This
Right.
is just,
We're not doing that.
yeah, we're not doing
Yeah.
that. But it was just like a very interesting thing of like, oh, I always thought like kind of not go for like slimmer men because I think maybe they fetishize me. But then this guy sort of come in and told me about, oh, do you know that there is this app kind of like Facebook or whatever way you meet other people who are into like people or fat people who are into the feeding community or something like that. And
Right,
I was
right,
just
right.
like, oh, that is so interesting. So that kind of changes the way I see things. But I don't know, what was your question?
Oh yeah,
Sorry.
just like first I asked if you've dealt with this, and then I wanted to get into like how can we deal with this because this came up a lot. It's like and you hit you said what a lot of people were messaging me about, which is like when you meet someone, how do you know if they just have a fetish for bigger women or not? Do you have any advice for this? Like how do you know?
Honestly, the moment they say I like fat women or I like fat people and I just want to like touch your this is just my assumption, right? Like it's like if they just want to play with your fats or like different parts of your body and yeah, I think maybe that's it. Although there are probably different
Honestly, I mean, it depends on, I guess, like, I think people with fetishes, like any kind of fetish, usually make it pretty known early. They want to
yeah.
make sure that they're meeting someone who can like match their freak, you know. So I think that that's actually pretty good advice. But I think there is still a fear that like that won't be revealed until way down the line, until maybe you're like, 6 weeks into dating and maybe getting physical for the first time if you're waiting for a while, and then all of a sudden you realize that they just want you to sit on their face and then like, the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, hey, if whatever they're into and you're into, that's fantastic. I think like also always believe in sussing people out in the beginning. So even like with dating and stuff like that, I'm always, even when I'm matching with people, I'm already asking them, oh, sort of, what are your kinks or what are your fetishes? What are you
Mhm.
into? So I'm a huge
Oh, so
believer.
you get ahead of it. You're like asking about it.
I get ahead of it. I'm asking about it because I think these are, for me, especially like, are important to know that it's important for me to know that our values are aligned, our interests are aligned, on top of like our personalities and stuff like that. So I talk about it openly from the get go. So, I mean, that this is something that I would kind of bring up with someone like, hey, what are you kind of into? Do you have any kinks? Do you have any fetishes?
Yeah.
Yeah, and just having that conversation with them. But I also acknowledge that not everybody is super comfortable with bringing these sort of stuff up.
Yeah, what have the reactions been? Like, have they mostly been, like, people open to talking about it or, like, what has the range been for you?
So I would say, like, so far in terms of a date having a fetish for plus size bodies, I think there's only that one person who outwardly kind of told me about it. Other
Mhm.
people are pretty low key, although I can't say. So I don't get a lot of that, I
Mhm.
think. So I don't know, like it's kind of like weird, right? It's kind of like, are you fetishizing my body or do you just like fat ass? Like they got
Well, yeah, I
I
mean,
don't,
some people just like what they like, and it's not a fetish. Like,
yeah.
and I think that back to what we were talking about earlier, if you have been in a plus size body your whole life and you felt like you're not hot enough or something, you're gonna feel skeptical about someone really being into your body, even if it's not a fetish. They're just really into your body. And I think that is like kind of your part to deal with or figure out. But also, yes, there are people out there who like really don't care about you as a person and just are fetishizing you.
Yeah, or probably like another indication would probably be just they just sexualize every part of your body all
Right.
the time and they
Right.
don't appreciate you as a person. They don't
Yes.
appreciate your mind, they don't appreciate any parts of it. They're just probably just
Oh
so
my god.
into looking in your
Yeah.
body and getting turned on and stuff like that. If you're into that, fantastic. If it makes you uncomfortable or you're just like, I kind of feel something's off about this person or this relationship, then that's a red flag that you kind of have to then monitor and like sort of address.
I have a story about this. I have an
Okay.
example. I used to be on field, like, I met someone and we were starting to chat, like, this was just for a hookup, right? I wasn't trying to date this person, but, like, he kind of was doing exactly what you said. He did not care about my preferences or anything I was into. He was just hell bent on sending me these really weird videos that I don't wanna describe on air, but, like, and I'm like, I consented to receiving whatever, nudes and stuff like that. Like, it wasn't like he was just out of the blue sending me weird stuff. I'm like, "Sure." You know? Sure, and it was just like but he did not care. I was trying to engage with him, but he did not care what I was into at all. I think he just got off on sending me these videos, and I could have been anyone.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, if it's just very one-sided, it's a sign.
Yeah, that's a really good example when they don't care about what you like and what you don't like and they just kind of
Yeah.
they're selfish and just think about what they like and what they want, then that's a problem. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I appreciate you. I think it's really important that we get really into the details here because this stuff isn't talked about enough? So, okay, speaking of sex and being in a bigger body, let's just say you're fine with the dating process, but the second you get physically intimate with someone, you're like really self-conscious. How have you dealt with this in the past? Like, any tips there?
Ooh, my big one is, and I know this is such a vulnerable thing, is straight away tell my partner my insecurities, like which parts of my
Mm.
body are my insecurity. Because interestingly, I feel like people are more empathetic and people are more nice and caring if you tell them what you're insecure about. And I think it would be the same for me too if my partner would tell me, hey, I'm really insecure with my penis, for example, or like
Mhm.
parts of my stamina or like parts of my whatever, right? I would straight away go like, hey, you know what? Like let's do it slow and then don't go fast. I have more empathy. So
Mm,
I would think it's the same way with the other person where I'm like, I'm really insecure with my belly or like my butt or my thighs or like whatever, especially like, and this is a big one, like my vulva, the way it
mm,
looks and the way the shape is, or like the smell and stuff like that, especially as a plus
mhm,
size woman, because we like my inner thighs are a darker shade because of the
mm,
chaffing and everything.
mhm,
And so
mhm.
I've always, for the longest time, I've been super insecure because every part of my body is like the color of what I am. Then the inner thighs are like different color. So I've always like asked partners, I'm like, hey, I know I've always told partners I'm really insecure with like my inner thighs, and it doesn't look pretty or whatever. And then it's really empowering when they say, I don't even look at that. Like when I see
Right.
you,
I don't
I
even
just
notice it. Yeah.
yeah, when I see you, I just want to like have you all and right now
Oh,
and stuff.
yeah.
And or they will like compliment and they will make me feel really good, and that helped so much in lessening the burden that I have in my head of like this insecurity and the shame, and huge. This is a huge shame, and in my body too.
I mean, I wanna point out that you like, doing that is really empowering, but you also have to have a lot of trust in the person. So, how did you get to the point where you can trust someone, like, when you share those insecurities, that they will react that way? Or do you not expect them to? Like,
Yeah,
that's so vulnerable and scary.
it is, and I think like just the act of being vulnerable for me personally is something that I've kind of taught or practiced for a long time. It starts off with the date. So let's say if it's with someone that I just match, I don't really know. When we match, I would share certain stories, and just to kind of gauge of what kind of person this person is, whether there's like kind of empathy or like, or I'll ask them a certain vulnerable story or like I don't know, questions or something like that, and then that in itself sort of allows me to gauge whether or not I want to proceed to the next level, which is kind of probably meeting this person in person. So there are stages to how I date nowadays because
Mm,
I just kind of want to protect my energy, and B, also like I don't want to waste time. So like it goes. So I sort of suss them out during the dating period, during the dating
yes.
scene. So it could be even on the first date, if I already feel comfortable when we're just chatting, and then now we're like meeting in person, and I'm comfortable, we're sharing the story and sussing things out. And then if it progresses in the bedroom, I kind of know that this person would have sort of empathy. But then if from the get go, I feel like, I'm sharing parts of my story and they make fun of me, you better believe I'm not going to go sleep with this person unless I'm super horny. Then in that
Right,
case,
unless you don't care, you're like, "Whatever."
yeah,
I
yeah,
yeah. Okay, I like this. I like that you touched on, like, the timing because we tend to get a little rigid with, "Oh, I don't sleep with anyone until the 6th date," but truly it is a process of feeling it out, like, really and trusting what you are feeling is real. So, like, if you feel a little off because someone's cracking jokes while you're telling them something vulnerable, trust that. That's weird, you know? It doesn't mean like, "Oh, if I have sex with them, maybe it'll be better." Like, no. I
no,
think yeah, and I think if also you feel like giving someone more time, like you wanna like it's maybe some people are just a tough nut to crack, you know? Like, some people just don't open up on the first date, it
yeah.
takes a few dates. So, okay, you're building trust over a few dates, that's fine too. I like that you feel it out. Yeah, you don't have a rule.
And I think like another big thing about dating as a plus size person is that, so I always feel like someone hotter than me and we're not like on the same level. So I tend to not go for someone hotter. But then there was this one time I went for this person who was super hot, who looked like Thor, like has this like Thor body, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, like this person is beyond sort of, you know it's beyond me, like why this person chose me, and I should be thankful and stuff. And even though my body was telling me this person is a lot of red flag, there's so many things about this guy that just was not healthy, and it was kind of toxic, and the way he was treating me was not good. But because he chose me, therefore I
Mm,
should be thankful that he has chosen
No.
me, and I kind
Yeah.
of, even though my body was telling me I don't want to have sex with this person, I don't want to go out with this person, or this person kind of coerced me into certain things, but then I just like would keep just meeting this person because I should be proud. And that was like a big lesson that I had, because I, yet part of me is just the self-esteem thing and the pride
Mm.
of being chosen, but also it was shitty because I was not choosing myself.
I really appreciate you sharing that because it's just like being quote unquote chosen isn't enough. You need to also be the chooser. Like this is what I talk about a lot on this podcast is like you have to you're choosing how they treat you. You're choosing like what you, if they can meet your standard or not. And this even though this person quote unquote chose you, like they weren't up to your standard and how they treated you.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It boils down a lot to values, your own personal values and worth.
Right. Okay, so you shared so much on this podcast. Like your insight is so, so valuable, and I appreciate your openness and vulnerability. I want to wrap things up with a dating dilemma that was submitted to me, and this is a little bit different. It's a more on an STI topic. Do you want to answer it with me?
Sure.
All right, here it goes. I was recently diagnosed with HSV in my private areas. Despite it being a more common STI that most people don't know they have until they experience the system, I've been really under the weather and hindered by it. Is it something I should disclose from the jump with the potential of being written off too early or later? I hate saying it makes me feel like lesser of a woman, but dating is already hard enough, and I feel like I'm worried it's another obstacle for me to find love. How should I go about this?
I totally understand this. I have had STDs, STIs before. I think I had chlamydia at one point. Yeah, I had chlamydia, HPV, and all this stuff. I'm big on sort of disclosing things, but I totally understand about the whole finding it really hard to disclose because of all of this sort of the stigma around STIs and stuff like that.
I kind of think it has a lot to do with what you were just talking about building trust with someone, right? And it's like going through that process in the dating of like, don't worry about problems that don't exist yet. Like, don't cross that bridge until you want to with someone, right? It's like find the person you actually want to have sex with, find the person you actually enjoy being around that you and that you trust will respond in an empathetic or just neutral way, a logical, rational way versus like a big emotional response or like a mean response, you know? Do that first. And then when you get to that point, you can be like, this is hard for me to talk about. This is not a fun conversation, but I absolutely need to let you know that I was diagnosed with HSV. Here's what I'm doing about it. Here's the information, and go from there. And I have people in my life who have dealt with this on the receiving end, like their partners told them, and they have various ways of dealing with it. And it's like you get through it.
Yeah, and I also have a lot of friends who have HSV. They are
Mhm.
really, you can control your medication to make sure that
Mhm.
there are no flare ups and everything, and you
Yep.
can still have a very healthy and full sex life, and and they're happy too, my friends. So
Yeah.
I think, like what you said, don't cross the bridge before they don't think about all the problems before it even is there, and also know that HSV is something that you can curb and
Yeah.
with the proper medications and stuff.
Yeah. And the right person will be game to deal with it. It's like
Yeah, of
not that it's like, yes, I'm not trying to minimize it. It is significant. Like I understand how
course.
it's a big deal to your self-esteem, but in the big picture, like you said, there are medications. It is manageable. It's not a unsolvable problem. Like a bigger problem would be like if you're married and then they don't want kids and you do. Like that's probably or like you're pregnant and they realize they don't want children. That's
Yeah,
like a much bigger in terms of dealing with it, like,
just know that you'll be okay. You're
yeah, you'll
okay.
be okay. Yeah,
You're
yeah,
whatever sort of whatever you have right now, it's a big thing. It's scary, but also you're gonna be okay. And the right people who deserves you will know that about this,
yeah.
about you, and they would be more than happy and very honored to be in your presence naked, or
Oh,
or
that's so beautiful. I love
yeah.
that. What do you wanna see more of in dating, in our dating culture today?
I want to see more of sex positive conversations, like being able to talk about things that are, like taboo and stigmatized. I want it to be normalized, and
Mm,
just knowing the difference between consent and coercion, because a lot of people don't know the difference between the two. And you know and having more sort of narrative for to talk about consent amongst men as well, because we have a lot of narrative of consent amongst women and the yeses and the nos for women, but we don't really have much conversations around sort of men and their consent and their boundaries. And that's something that I like talking about to people, especially to men, because they don't know that they do have boundaries. They would say like, yeah, I'm okay with anything and everything, do whatever. And then I'm like, okay, well, do you know, are you okay with this, are you okay with that? And it's just like, no, not that, not this, not that.
mhm,
um
mhm.
but also about sexual wellness, about STIs, the importance of going to get yourself tested. So this question that the previous person posed is fantastic, and it's a real
Yeah,
thing, and it should be normalized, these sort of conversation, and not stigmatized at all.
love it. I agree wholeheartedly with what you said about, these conversations, especially boundaries, consent for everyone, men, women, all genders, needs to be we just need to be doing more of it, and not being so like sticky about it. It's okay. We all have bodies. We want to enjoy pleasure and enjoy sex. We have to talk about it.
Yeah, and more on
Yeah.
queer dating. I think that's something that we
Yeah.
need to talk about too.
Yeah, 100%. Well, this has been incredible. I love, love, love talking to you. I've been following you for a while, and this conversation was just so pleasant. You're so real. Where can we find more of you?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's been a while since I have these sort of conversations, and I really appreciate this. So, where can you find me? I am on Instagram. It's the Jas Explains, TheJas Explains, Explains. I'm mostly on Instagram. I also have a podcast, which is not really active, but it's. I wish someone told you it's a podcast that I have. It's really about conversations about sex amongst Asians.
Love
What it
it.
is.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.